Do you find it hard to work the steering mechanism on your pedal drive kayak? Let me show you the solution I created for my Jackson. You might be able to do something similar once you're inspired by what I do right here. Welcome back! If you're new to the channel, we cover kayak modifications, spin, and fly fishing. So poke that subscribe button so you don't miss anything.
I'm out here on Greenfield Lake today to try and catch a bass, as well as do a test drive on the handle I've attached to the little rudder nub that's on this Jackson Coosa FD. And so far, it's working out great. It's so much easier to move the rudder when you can grab the whole thing like this instead of just a little tip of the nubby with a couple of your fingers. Let's look at the basic steering mechanism as it comes with the kayak. You've got this little nub right here, and then you have the slot if you want to lock it down and have your rudder go straight. Well, my problem is that it's awful hard to get a lot of leverage on this little tiny nub right here to be able to turn the rudder. It takes a lot of effort, and typically what I'll do is I use both hands since there's one of these controls on both sides of the boat. Now, with my solution, you will lose the ability to put it into this slot. But I don't think putting it in that slot is a big deal, because the boat's probably not going to track straight anyway, even if the rudder is perfectly aligned. And the reason is you've got current, you've got wind, the boat may not be perfectly balanced between left and right, so giving up that feature to me isn't a big deal. I never use it. But I do want to have better control over my steering. So this worked great on my trial run yesterday. And what I learned is you're not going to want to hold it up here. You're going to want to put your little finger right down here in the crook and then move it back and forth. So here you can see a 3/4 inch PVC and how that compares to the knob. Now, the first thing to realize is you're not going to try and put this piece onto the knob. Rather, you're putting the connector. And the connector is going to be a bigger diameter, and that's going to make it fit almost. You can see that I still need to sand off a little bit on each of these corners. And that's exactly what I did on the other side and what I'm about to do right now. I use my Dremel, but you could use a file or sandpaper as well. If you use anything with power, it's going to kick off small pieces of rubber and they're going to fly all over the place. So you need to wear eye protection. I've got these custom safety glasses and I'll put those on. One of the things I recommend is do exactly what I did. I only did it to one side of my kayak to be able to test it out to see if I was comfortable. That way the other side, at least with the Jackson, you have steering controls on both sides. The other side remained pristine in version. So you may want to do that too before you go and change each side of your steering controls as I show in this video. I recommend you use a pair of pliers to grab the knob because it's going to tend to flop around as you move the sanding wheel back and forth. Yeah, I put the face mask on too. I only have one good eye, so I'm psycho about my eyes. So let me show you how little I had to take off to make this happen. So you can see that it's just barely rounded on each of the corners. Now you don't want to do all this at once. You hit a little of each of the four corners and then you try and fit the 45-degree connector on. And in my case, I can just barely squeeze it down on, so it's going to be really tight. I don't want to do it all the way because I got to put this piece on next. And that's what you want. You don't want it to be loose at all. So take a little off on each corner, test, take a little off until it just barely fits on there and you can jam it down. You can see that mine is not going on there easily, and that's exactly what we want. And I remeasured this, so now it's going to be perfect. My paw will be right in there just like that without a lot of excess sticking over the top. Because I don't want the excess there, because that's an inch that could get in the way of something. Given the safety message on the eyeballs, why not wear a PFD all the time? You don't really need to wear it to make this project, but do wear it on the water. So what I ended up doing with this, well, I had some extra of that tennis racket wrap left over,
after I wrapped up my paddle. So I figured, what the heck, I'll put that on there. Might make the grip a little bit better. We'll see if it comes off over time. But it will not impact the functionality of being able to use this to grab and work the steering lever. Now the last step is to jam this on the steering knob, and I'm going to use a number 6 1-inch stainless steel screw in the back to hold it on. I don't think you need to see me drill it, but that's what I'm going to do right now. When you jam it on, you can see I have it all the way down here. Make sure it's aligned straight with the cable or the shaft, depending on your kayak. It's lined up. Now I'll drill the screw in from this side. So it's all done. The screw's in there. Now on the other side, I countersunk this a little bit, worried that it would get in the way of my hand, but it's never going to get in the way of my hand. So I elected not to countersink it on this side, because that way there's a thicker band of PVC that the screw is going to go through before it gets into the knob. I'm all set. Oh boy, it's hot out here in the shop today. I'm sweating like a pig. So if you've got a better way to adjust your steering levers to give you more grab and more positive control, regardless of the type of kayak. Obviously I did this on the Jackson because that's what I've got, but if you've got a kayak that has a similar steering arrangement and you try this, let us know how it works. I think it's going to work out fine for me.